Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Jamal Kindi from Petro Adroitness, and I am very sorry that I haven't uploaded anything for the last 3 months. So I realized that I can't actually give you a fixed schedule during my studies. After my studies, during the breaks and stuff, I can upload videos because a video takes a lot of time, a lot of research to kind of put out there. So this is part 2 of the types of drilling rigs. We covered the first part, which is onshore drilling rigs. The previous video, if you want to check that out, go ahead. In offshore drilling rigs we have 2 types. The first is the floating rigs and the second is the bottom supported rigs. These types of rigs have other subtypes, so I think it will be better to give you a diagram which shows all of these subtypes and their subtypes and their sub-subtypes, because it's a lot of subtypes. I did tell you there's a lot of variation in offshore drilling rigs when compared to the onshore drilling rigs. Alright, so for the bottom supported rigs means that they're basically supported by their bottom. That didn't sound right. Bottom. So it's basically resting the legs of these rigs on the seafloor. Right. So imagine a beach, so you're kind of moving away as you go. The shallowest parts are drilled using the barge. The barges are usually used in shallow areas or shallow water areas. They are transported to the drilling site either by themselves or by another ship that carries it or pulls it to the drilling site. After it reaches the drilling site, it's submerged until it hits the sea bottom, or it can be anchored and pushed down to the sea bottom. And remember that barges are only used in coastal areas, which in other words means in very shallow waters. I mean like mustanqa shallow, like swamp shallow. Yeah, swamp shallow. As you move on to deeper waters, you can't use the barges anymore because they can't sink enough to reach the bottom, so you use jack-up rigs. Jack-up rigs have 3 to 5 legs depending on how much support you need for the rig and how much weight you can or you want to carry on that jack-up rig. And as I said, the water depth in jack-up rigs is significantly higher. And when I talk about the depth of the water, I mean the depth of the water, not the seafloor, not the drilling, just the depth of the water. I can't say anything more than that. The deepest jack-up rig was the Maersk MSC C170-150 MC. Did I say that right? Yes! Finally! Oh my god, that took a while. So it reached the water level of about 170 meters. Almost all jack-up rigs are transported to the drilling site using a tugboat while the legs are up. And when it reaches the desired drilling location, the legs are jacked down to rest on the seafloor. So the idea behind the jack-up rig is basically to decrease the area of effect of the waves by raising the whole rig and just let the tides affect the legs, which are relatively smaller in area when you compare them to the whole rig. So there are 2 types of legs that are used in jack-up rigs. The first is the least stable and cheapest option, which is the columnar legs. They are basically steel columns that are jacked down to rest on the seafloor. They're not ideal for more than a water depth of say 70 meters. To compensate for these disadvantages, you use a more stable alternative, which is the open truss legs. These legs resemble an electrical tower basically, that helps to significantly reduce the area of effect for the tides, waves and wind. As you can imagine, a whole column will kind of have this whole area of effect, where the open truss would have something like this, which is kind of less, I guess. I mean, if you can't understand this, it's alright, just look at the photo. I think it's easier that way. How you rest these legs on the seafloor depend mainly on one thing, which is how soft or hard the ocean crust is or the ocean floor is. There are 2 types. There is the independent legged rigs, which is just resting the individual legs on their own using spud cans, which are these things. And you basically can kind of attach the legs to the seafloor. But for softer ocean floors, you can't actually use these independent legs because they'll kind of fall apart. If you imagine a dough of mandazi or sambusa or any type of dough, I don't know, whatever you like, a cake dough, you can't actually stabilize one thing on it unless you go to a very high depth into that ocean floor. No, we're talking about dough, but you get the point. So they use an A type mat to stabilize the rig, kind of spread the weight on a large area so that the ocean crust, or the dough in that case, isn't affected or isn't fractured by these legs. The concept is kind of like the concept of snowshoes, which kind of spread your weight over a larger area so that you don't sink into the snow. It's basically the same thing, but you can go with the dough example as well, it's alright. Moving on, the last part of bottom supported offshore drilling rigs, that's a mouthful, is the production platforms. Now one of you might ask, Jamal, aren't jack-up rigs and barges used for production? Well, yeah, they can be used for exploration as well, but for fixed platforms, they're mainly used for production because they're very expensive when you compare them to jack-up rigs and especially barges. Fixed platforms can be used for exploration as well, but it's very high risk because they're used in very deep waters. I mean, more than 170 meters, so places that jack-up rigs cannot handle. The design of these platforms is unique for every rig because it's kind of designed for a specific place, so there's no point in explaining how it's designed. But real quick, jacket type is one of the types. You kind of put the rods down and then you put the legs on the rods and then you get the fixed platform. I know this is very disrespectful for the designers because it's like 5 seconds or 10 seconds, but I think we should move on to other types because we have a lot of other types. As for the bottom supported rigs, that's it. All these bottom supported rigs are either self-contained, which means they provide their own equipment, their own power and their own accommodation, or they can be tendered. Oh, KFC tenders, they're so tender. Where were we? Oh yeah, tendered rigs. They cannot provide their own space for these things that I just mentioned, not the KFC tenders before that. So there's a ship that is beside them that provides either power, accommodation, or all of the above. Alright, so we're done with the bottom supported rigs, which were barges, jack-up rigs and fixed platforms. I really hope you enjoyed. I will cover the floating rigs in the next video, just because there's a lot of concepts that need clarification before we start talking about floating rigs. And yeah, that's probably it. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Next week there is a video. The week after that, I can't guarantee anything. So please do subscribe to the channel for every now and then videos about petroleum. Like this video if you liked it. Comment what you didn't like about it if you didn't. Thank you so much for watching, and you'll see me guys in the next one. Hey. The deepest jack-up rig was the Maersk MSC C170-150. No! MC! Damn it. But if you have a softer formation, you can't use that because if you imagine a ajina of mandazi, say. Ajina of mandazi. Mumtaz. One of you might be asking, Jamal, yeah, that's my name in English, Jamal.